Welcome to Tween Talk Live. Today, April 16th. Here we are already partway through the month. How can it be? Perhaps you are in the throes of figuring out what you're going to do for next year. Homeschooling. Maybe you're thinking, I want to pull my kid out. How do I do that? We're not going to talk about that today. However, if this is something that you've been thinking about, but you're wondering how on earth can you keep everything organized, stick around. I've got some ideas for you. So when we're thinking about this idea of scheduling and getting all of the stuff done that you want to get done with your homeschooling year, you might feel like, I'm not very organized. How can I help my tween be organized? You can. And also, this idea that creating schedules is an experimental process. So if we can just take this pressure off of having this perfect schedule, and I know that when we first started homeschooling, I was very regimented. I thought, okay, we're going to do this for 15 minutes and then this for 30 minutes and so on and so forth all throughout the day, every single day. And I quickly realized we were going to burn out if we kept on like that. So over the years, I have tried a number of different ways to schedule and taught my girls how to do their scheduling. And we've come up with a few things, and that's what I want to share with you today, hoping that something here will be a takeaway for you, something you go, oh, that will work for me, or a version of that will work for me. So that's my hope for us today. So when we are thinking about creating a schedule, there's a couple of lenses we have to look at schedules through. First of all, we're creating a schedule that has to do with capacity. So how much can we handle? How much can our tween handle? So that is a consideration. Like, what is in this schedule? If we're thinking they're doing math and science and essay writing and the list goes on, you're going to burn out in that schedule. There's too many things that eventually you think, okay, well, we have this capacity, this amount that we can handle, and that exceeds it. So it doesn't matter what kind of schedule you have and how by the minute it is, you're setting yourself up to fail because there's just too much. And it's overwhelming that capacity. So just take an honest look at it and go, what can we actually handle? When we're looking at what our life is, what our skills and talents are, what your tween skills and talents are, your level of introversion, extroversion, your tween's level of introversion, extroversion, like how much alone time, how much people time, all of those things relate to capacity. Okay, so we've thought about capacity. Then we need to think about, how about the natural rhythms of the year? So depending where you live, you've got snowy times of the year. You've got beautiful sunshiny times of the year when you have a lot of family events, times where you're just stuck in the house, times where maybe you're going on vacation, times where people are coming over. Maybe there's a season of birthdays, whatever it is. Think about what your year actually looks like. If every year you get to December and it's high stress because you're trying to do all of these things on top of your school schedule, rethink it. It's okay. Just acknowledge, oh, that's a really busy month. So you know what? We're going to work around it. That's okay. So we have these year rhythms. Then we're going to break it down, and we have rhythms within the month. So there are some times in the month that are, you have more energy, your tween has more energy, and we want to work with that. We're not machines, we're not robots, we can't do the same thing every single day. And it could be that, you know what, we start the month off strong and things are great, and then we kind of fall off. Okay, own it. Just look at it and say, this is what's happening. Let's work around that. Let's figure out why it's happening. Maybe we can change it. Maybe you can't change it, but you can modify. So we're just assessing. And then we can get down to the daily, which is what we usually, weekly. So during that week, again, there's a flow during the week. And do you usually start off strong on Monday? Is it a slow start on Monday? What if your week is full or your weekend is full? Monday might be slower. Maybe you don't have enough energy. Whereas if you have a relaxed weekend, maybe that beginning of the week is great. Like I have great Mondays if I have Sunday off. So start to think about those things, that flow. And then you have the flow throughout the individual day. What are energy levels like during the day? What about brain capacity, attention, all of those things during the day? Are you a get up at 6 kind of person? Are you a get up at 10 and start working kind of person? Do you like to have your school work done by 2 o'clock, by 6 o'clock? Like what is that flow throughout the day? So after you think about these kind of things, then you'll have some idea of what kind of schedule you can put together, and you can optimize. That schedule to get the stuff done that needs to be done. Now we want tweens to be resilient planners, meaning that we want to help them start to create plans that can just become a part of their regular life. And if something intrudes into that plan, they're capable of adapting and changing and modifying that schedule for that time, and then jumping back in and continuing on without having it derail everything in their life. Like, oh my goodness, I just can't carry on the rest of this month because we had company for one day and now it's messed up my entire schedule. We want to get away from that and to a more resilient attitude towards planning. The thing is, there is no ideal schedule. It will change throughout this whole homeschooling process. Whether you're homeschooling for a year, 10 years, whatever, you will go through multiple iterations of a schedule. And if you want your kid to be an independent learner, teaching them how to create their own schedules, agendas, timelines, all of these things will pay off. It will be like the best thing you can do. Yes, they need to learn how to read instructions and learn how to learn. They also need to learn how to block their time so they can get that learning accomplished. They can achieve their learning goals. And if we have like rigid schedules for a long period of time without any adjustments, we're going to burn out. We're going to say, this isn't working. We're going to be head to head with our tween all the time. It's going to be awful. So instead, what about working towards something that goes with the annual, monthly, weekly, daily kind of flow, like you get it down there, and something that is maintainable over time. So I'm going to suggest this idea of 12-week learning blocks. And when I say 12-week learning blocks, I literally mean it is a learning block that you're going to spend 12 weeks on. You're going to spend a week prior. So that would be like the 13th week is your first week. And then you have 12 weeks after that, where you're deciding, hey, what are we going to do during these 12 weeks? And I have a whole thing about that we're not going to dive in super deep today. But what if we had this structured 12-week block? What could be accomplished? So you look at, where does that 12 weeks fall in the year? What's going on during that time? What's going on essentially during those 3 months? And the beauty of the 12-week block is you can start at any time. You don't have to start it on the first of a month. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't have to start in September or January. You can start it whenever you want. So it's just a more structured approach to learning that allows you not to be burnt out. In fact, it's the one thing that my daughters say, oh, I wish we would have done this sooner. It has been a game changer. And so you block out and you say, okay, well, what are we doing in this 12-week block? And we might be finishing up an entire science curriculum in 12 weeks because we're going to dedicate time for that. We're going to dedicate time for another large block of work. So maybe you have 2 or 3 things, maybe even up to 4 things, depending on your capacity and your child's capacity, your tween's capacity. What are those primary goals during that 12-week block? And then what's going to happen is you're going to take that work and go, okay, so we're going to divide it by the weeks. Let's get this done. And it provides a schedule that is enough that you can see to the end of it, but it's not so much that you're like, oh, when is this going to be over? 12 weeks is kind of the sweet spot. And then I would encourage you, if you choose to do this kind of 12-week learning block, and if you're interested in learning more about that 12-week learning block, please write it in the chat, just type 12 weeks, and I will get back to you on more information about that. But then the first 2 weeks are kind of a little bit stressful. You're learning a new routine, you're learning new material. And so your tween might be like, I don't want to do this. This is too frustrating. But I encourage you, hang on for those 2 weeks. Hang on, hang on, hang on. And then they'll start to see, oh, okay. So I just have to get this much done, and then I'm done for the day. This much done for the day. And they get into a rhythm. Then partway through those 12 weeks, then there's this messy middle kind of dip where you're like, oh, are we done yet? But I encourage you to push through, because when you finish that 12-week block, it's going to train your tween's brain to finish something and get the reward for finishing. So then the next 12-week learning block you do, your tween's brain goes, oh yeah, I learned some stuff. It was fabulous. Or maybe it wasn't fabulous, but you know what? I finished something and I can be proud of that. And that's an accomplishment. Now, maybe they're not saying all those things exactly like that, but those are things that you could speak into their life so that they see, wow, I did a thing. Because when they go and they're working out in the real world, they're going to have deadlines, they're going to have to push through, they're going to have commitments, they're going to have to be resilient in their planning and scheduling. So you are doing them a favor by helping them learn these things now. It's going to help them throughout their high school and beyond. But this is like, you give them kind of training wheels. So you're helping them, meaning you're the training wheels for them. So you're guiding them, you are encouraging them, you are helping them create the schedule for these 12 weeks. And then you're assessing and saying, okay, so what went well? What didn't go so well? What would we change next time? And then this is where, in that flow of the year, if you've just done a 12-week learning block plus that first week, so you've got 13 weeks there, then take a month off. And that month off is not just like, oh, play on video games for a whole month. It's personal projects. So they've pushed, and now it's like, okay, what kind of bigger project do you want to do to like something that they are really interested in? And of course, they still are doing some household chores. They're still doing their piano lessons. If they're having piano lessons, these kind of things are still part of their day. We don't want to like toss structure totally out. But in those times where they would be having work blocks for math or science or whatever, that's where they now put into their schedule. They go, oh, I have all that time to do this animation project that I really wanted to work on. Or I really wanted to build something in the shop with my dad, and I'm going to work on that. Or I really wanted to bake a bunch of stuff. Or whatever the case may be, whatever it is that they want to do, they'll be able to do that. And then you start another 12-week learning block, but start it first with that week of planning. And so the year goes. And what we found is it makes for a really nice pace without getting burnt out. And it also encourages this mindset of schedules as experimental. So we're seeing, like, how do I work best? Let me try it out. And this continually learning instead of thinking, oh, it has to be this way. So I hope that that has been helpful as we have been thinking about treating scheduling as an experimental process, creating resilient planners, and moving our tweens along to become more independent in their learning. If you are interested in more about the 12-week learning blocks, again, please write it down in the chat, 12 weeks, and I will get in touch with you and we can talk more about it. But until next time, keep talking with your tween, and I'll see you next week.